Hello, if you're familiar with my channel and my particular area that I focus on, it's very much on weights and measures, especially how ancient measure scales compared to, well, of course, ancient architecture and how they've flowed through to the modern world. One that I don't, I've very rarely discussed, but it's very important and very much connects to the Samian, Doric, Ionic, the Cremona, and these other uh, redundant scales. I suppose I don't like the word, I probably shouldn't say redundant, but these scales that have fallen out of favour, and that's got to do, anyway, the megalithic yard and the work of Alexander Thom. He surveyed hundreds of sites across the UK and France and basically Western Europe, and he sometimes called the geomancer's yard, but the megalithic yard. Now, there are a few variations, different ideas. So if you do a search, for instance, this is just pulled off Google Images. But so we have a common yardstick, but what is a megalithic yard? Well, it's give or take of 2.72 of SI yards is one megalithic yard, and there is a slight. So we're talking about less than a 3 mil variation here. But let's look at some important sites we have. So Kercado in France. It could be much. It could be as old as 4,500 BC. There are some references to it. I'm not sticking by it. I'm just pointing that out. But the itself, so 98 by 82 feet, and 82 feet is very important. But I'm going to focus on 98 feet for the moment, because you also see 82 feet. So many sites across the world, but okay, so this is in Canada. The Sunwheel has its called the Sun Temple in Alberta, just outside of Majorville, I think is a town. Now it could be at least as old as Stonehenge Phase 1, not the later phase that we think now. So older than the Stonehenge we see now. It's just like Kercado. It's astronomically aligned. This is a constant with these sites. Wherever you find archeoastronomy, you're also going to find some very important standard weights and measures. Lots of videos on them. Well, for instance, 82, 108 feet, and this one, which I haven't talked about. I have made a video and I did a little bit on it, but I want to expand on a little further. So we have that. That's in Canada. Now in France as well, so not too far away from the Kercado site, we have the fallen Menhir, which was 98 feet when standing. So this is another example. Now, Silbury Hill, very famous. Again, the weights and measures, 273, all these other very important ones. But you have this flat platform there on the top. And so here's a better view of it. So that flat section there on the top of the dome. Interesting Silbury Hill and connections to Stonehenge and alignments. There's a lot of amazing stuff there. But once again, we have 30 meters as will often be referred to, but that's 30 meters is 98.4 feet, and well, unless they're using exactly meters, well, which that's another story, but anyway, 98 feet, so within a very fraction would come to that measure, and especially with an object like that, an earthen object, it's very difficult to get exact site. Now in up in Scotland we have Wasbister. Stenest, like up near Orkney, we have some famous like the Stenest standing stone and other but anyway, so the Barrow 49 and the ditch bank 98, so 49 times 2 is 98. It's at a 2-to-1 ratio. Now 49 and 98, as with these scales, will be linked, and they'll bring us a lot of cool knowledge. But also in the channel, English channel between there, we have so you have these earlier references. Now so we have, again, they're referring it to as 30 feet, and again, sort of say they've given a poor conversion between feet and meters. But anyway, so we have something once again which is like 82, which is again something else, that's a 273 connection, but 49 feet as well, which connects us to Wasbister. Now they're now on the same sort of theme. So Stoney, Littleton, Long Barrow. So often people in this, we'll focus on the same sort of sites, and there's all sorts of ideas out there, usually based on rather poor information, sort of Chinese or telephone game, where people are just but anyway, Stoney, Littleton, Long Barrow, 49 feet on one axis, 98 feet on the other. So we have across France, across England, even over to the Americas, and we'll get back to that as towards the end. So I've got them roughly in set by age. Now Stanton Drew, the northeast circle diameter 98 feet once again. So just like, well, there are a few more examples of it. Now these stone circles, especially in the UK and France, are almost entirely, usually always have some astronomical alignment and connection, and the Castlerigg stones in Cumbria are no different from that, and they're very often ovalish, so they're not very more often than not, they're not a true circle, they have an oval, and that in itself is an important clue, because, well, it's not, you know, they could have done it in the circle, but they've done it in ovals for archeoastronomy reasons, and again, because you see this pattern following through and through, and so on the long diameter is just under 108 feet, depending on how you measure, and the short diameter is 98 feet. Again, so even at, again, but the 98 feet, but we see this will be a constant. Now, the recently discovered Sittingbourne Henge also in Kent as well. Well, the diameter of it, so we get the aerial view, and we have the inner circle and the outer circle, and once more the inner circle is 98 feet once more. Now, so we, it really is. Now, these are just examples that I've already sort of had prepared. Now, I've got a lot of other ones on in my notes and collections, and it's basically you're looking for something that's 30 meters diameter, and there will bring you to your 98 feet. Now, it's again so often. It's a tendency for people working in metric to do poor conversions over to the imperial. Calcoene, again, a stone circle, astronomical alignments. This is in Brazil, so this is another one in the Americas. Now, there are other examples, but it would just be a long place of listing one site after the other. But what's the diameter? Once more, 98 feet. So this... and again, sort of, so if you go back to Alexander Thom's work, and well, how does this connect to the megalithic yard? Well, it has some very interesting connections, because it also forms something of a unity point between multiple scales of measure, the same systems of measure that I talk ad infinitum in regards to modern, but also to ancient architecture. And that's got to do with harmonic or Pythagorean numbers, as they're called. So before we go further, I want to come back to one of the points I keep referring to, and that's the Salamis stone, discovered by Mark Wilson Jones, and how it shows, well, many important things. The Samos foot, as in Pythagoras of Samos, the Doric and the Ionic foot, and also how it shows that the so-called modern foot that we still use now is at least 2,500 years old. So here's, for instance, the Doric, the Ionic, and the common foot. An important point, because through, well, so many ancient sites of the Greco-Roman world, but actually far earlier than that, we find that these temples are designed at such a point that they harmonize between various units of measure, and from that a huge amount of knowledge is encoded. Now, for instance, 144 hand, 576 inches on the common, which comes from the Doric and the Ionic. Also, how groups such as Freemasons and their symbols, and well, Freemasonry, stone masonry, have passed this particular knowledge on, and it's again embedded in these very important symbols, the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns. Concepts like sun and the moon, these just sort of seem to be standards. Like another important one, which is the Cremona foot, for instance, and how these will all connect. Well, these will bring us some lovely coincidental measurements in regards to the megalithic yard, and so we have slight variation, exactly what it is. And so let's first begin and say that it's one megalithic yard is 2.72 of our common yard, so 1 yard being 3 feet. A yardstick, even as a term, we still use this because weights and measures are so important. But so if we're using the megalithic at 2.72 scale, well, look how interesting that is. So not only does it bring us, well, in the middle we see the Ionic column, and I've highlighted 306, but in the megalithic scale we see 6, 12, 24, 36, 108, 144, 432, 576, 1296. Beautiful numbers. That this is a, I won't go into the cards because I've done it in so many other videos, but 108, 144, 432, 1296, and also 6.18181818, 61818. The number files will get that reference straight away, because it's especially in regards to the pyramid, or essentially it's the anyway, and 306, well, that's 153 times 2, so that's working at 98 feet. But we'll have a look at Stoney, Littleton, Long Barrow as an example. 98 feet wide, 49 feet deep, 1:2 ratio. So we're working now. First we'll have a look the megalithic yard at 2.72. Well, for instance, if it's 97.92 feet, that will convert to the Ionic scale at, well, 306 hands at 49 feet, or 48.96, we get 153, and you'll note that both of them includes 216, 72. If you look in the green columns, there's your beautiful numbers right there, including 153 on the Ionic, which is again just one of these crucial points. One of these numbers still continues through to the modern age. Weights and measures and geometry is key to these. So there we see, so this is, again, we're working at 2.72 as the scale, and it's also 42 feet long. So not only on the Ionic 2.65, on the long foot, on the pinkish one 26.5, 265, 153, there's your vesica. Pythagorean theorem again, well, square root of 153, square root of 265, and square root of 288, 288 being this beautiful number just encoded through all architecture, modern and ancient. Also, we see example of the vesica, and how 265 over 153 is the best whole number approximation of the square root of 3. But so now in the bottom right we see too, so the one on the left, just pause. Okay, I just pause to highlight, but for instance we see 97.92 and 98 feet exactly, how these this small variation is exactly one ionic inch differential. And so now we're going to well, why is that relevant? Why am I bringing that up? Well, because here we see the 2.72 and 2.72222 scale, how they connect, and again we'll bring us to these very lovely numbers. So for instance, in the column, the black one, 1008, 252, well, 336, 112. How important these particular sets of numbers are. So we have a slight variation. So now we were looking at 2.72 has the conversion between megalithic and the modern yard, or so-called modern, because actually the foot is much older than what you often hear, that the foot was based on the length of a king's foot, which again is just for people working on weights and measures. You're not going to use this. You're going to use a standard measure, not something that's so variable, because you're paying taxes, land, or everything's based on it. It's just silly to say that. But okay, so now we see the scale. So now we're exactly at 98 feet, which brings us megalithic conversion rate of 2.72222, 7 twos all up there. Again, we have this conversion, but on the Cremona scale once more. So 7 English or modern feet equals 6 Cremona feet. And again, this is, well, as I showed, this was using Stoney, Littleton, Long Barrow. So it's exactly 1 ionic inch differential between the 2.72 and the 2.7222222 conversion point. And this, I believe, is probably what I consider to be the megalithic yard, and again we're talking millimeters in difference here, less than 2 millimeters between those two scales. Weights and measures, the symbols, the architecture, the legacy of it in legend has been passed on. This is, I believe, the way forward in this particular field, because these are, well, again, tangible. You can put your hand on them. You're always going to have a problem in regards to pure symbolism. Well, you know, people are always going to go this way, or you cannot nail it to the ground. But with weights and measures, and by using these methods, by expanding on the research, true research that's already been done, not the fluffy stuff, we're going to find that in weights and measures, the science of it, the symbols have been carried through time, from the Egyptians, the Babylonians, through to the Greeks and Romans. Now still also, again, the number of I did a video in regards to this, in regards to how important weights and measures are in the text, in the legend, in the legends. Again, like just for instance, because the Bible being the most, in the Western world being the most accessible of it, but it's repeated constantly over and over again, the importance of it. And then you have onto like Rosicrucians, Freemasons, Oddfellows, Templars, and how all their symbols are so much connected to weights and measures, and even their terminology about, you know, being on the square, being on the level. This is how you weigh, and this is how you measure. This is how, you know, this being the key. Now, again, I mentioned in the early video, but for instance, the rule of law, the scales of justice, you know, even in royal symbols. Now, what did royalty do? Royalty, as in the ruler, defined weights and measures. That's, again, this is no secret. This was carried up through till recent times. Things such as the ceremony of the Pix, where the coins are weighed and tested in the city of London. But also back to ancient times, even in the constellations, you know, the way we measure the number of years in precession, but the symbols themselves, you know, for instance, Aquarius, Libra, Virgo, the other constellations themselves are, so many of them are objects of weights and measures, which is, you know, how do we be true? We weigh and we measure. It's the basis of economy. It's the basis of law. It's the basis of any civilization. And through this system, through these numbers, you're able to pass on massive amounts of information through legends, through architecture, through something as mundane as a ruler. You know, weights and measures are really the only tangible way to go forward in these, because they are measurable. We can weigh them, and well, yeah. Anyway, like through this method, the truth shall make you free. And here we can test the truth. We can measure the truth, and we can advance the truth. Unlike, again, yeah, there's so much fluff, sort of, you know. Where they choose what they want to see, what they want to hear, and to push forward their particular narrative, whether it's the establishment view, whether it's the alternative view. Yeah, again, like, yeah, that needs to stop. It needs to be done in a rigorous way, and this is one method to do it. So anyway, hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.